It starts with a smell, not a confession, not a body in plain view, not the dramatic moment where everyone suddenly understands what happened. Just an officer standing on a quiet property in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, asking a simple question. What is that smell? At that moment, police had been looking for 60-year-old Craig Thetford for months. His friends could not reach him. His family could not reach him. His grandson said the story did not sound like Craig at all. And yet, as officers walked around the property, the answer was not in another city, or another country, or some hidden place miles away. It was right there, only feet from them. Craig Thetford lived in a large 3-story home with his wife, Dena. From the outside, it looked like success. A roofing business, multiple properties, money, vehicles, vacations, and a mountain home tucked into wooded terrain. But by May 2025, the people who knew Craig were hearing stories that did not line up. The first call came from a friend, Larry Scott. He told dispatchers that people in Texas had been trying to reach Craig for nearly 2 months. Craig was the kind of man who answered his phone. He called people back. Then, suddenly, nobody could get him. When officers went to the house, they found vehicles on the property and signs that someone had been there. They also noticed odd smells. But there was no obvious crime scene, no visible body, and no clear proof that Craig was dead.
So the first check ended without the discovery everyone was afraid of. The next call made the case harder to dismiss. Craig's grandson, Cody, told police his grandfather had been unreachable for months. He said Dena had been telling people Craig was in Mexico with another woman while the couple was supposedly separating. To Cody, that did not fit the man he knew. Police began checking the story from different angles. A neighbor gave them one version. Dena gave them another. She told investigators Craig had left, that he was involved with someone else, and that he was in Mexico. She said they had been having problems and that she had recently filed for divorce. But the more investigators listened, the less solid the story sounded. Detective Curtis began speaking with people around the family. One of the most important calls came from Dena's daughter, Leslie. She described a disturbing history inside the home and told detectives she had warned Craig before. Leslie also claimed Dena had once said she could kill Craig and get away with it. That was not proof of murder, but it changed the temperature of the case. Because now, Craig was not simply missing. People close to the family were quietly pointing toward the same person. Then Deputy Roger went back to the property. This visit should have been routine. He was there to ask more questions, look around, and keep pressure on a case that still had no body. But as he arrived, he saw Dena outside, near a freshly disturbed area.
She explained it away as work on an above-ground garden. Roger joked with her. The moment passed almost casually. Only later would investigators understand how close he had been standing to the truth. Inside, the conversation turned toward money. Dena talked about cash, safes, and what Craig supposedly kept hidden. She said she did not have access. But one of Craig's friends later told officers Craig had said the opposite, that Dena had the combination to the safe, and that if anything ever happened to him, there was money inside. That contradiction mattered. By this point, police still did not have Craig's body. They did not have a confession recorded in an interrogation room. They had missing person calls, inconsistent stories, financial questions, and witness claims that were becoming more disturbing with every interview. Then, Dena disappeared from easy reach. Detectives heard reports that she might flee or harm herself. At the same time, an old contact of Dena's called Detective Curtis with an explosive tip. According to him, Dena had said she shot Craig. But even that was not enough on its own.
Without Craig's body or harder physical evidence, Curtis still needed the property to speak. So she moved quickly. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Craig's house. Major crimes units went back to the Thetford property, this time not for a welfare check, but to search for a missing man who might have been hidden in his own home. The sweep started inside.
Officers cleared rooms, checked doors, moved through the house, and found details that now looked different. Bottles of bleach, signs of cleaning, surveillance equipment that appeared disabled, and areas that suggested something violent may have happened and then been covered up. They also found Craig's safe. Dena had spoken about a large amount of cash. At one point, the figure discussed was around $1.5 million. But when officers opened the safe, they counted about $84,200. It was still a lot of money. But if investigators were right, it was also a sign that Craig's assets had been shrinking while everyone else was being told he was simply away. Outside, the search moved through the outbuildings. Deputies checked Craig's man cave. They looked for cameras. They found a table saw with possible blood traces and suspected splatter in the workshop area. Still, there was no body. Then, the call came that changed everything. Leslie was back on the line. This time, she told investigators what she said her mother had told her. According to Leslie, Dena said Craig pushed her down the stairs. She shot him. He fell into the pool room, and his body stayed there for a day or more. Leslie said he was then wrapped in material, tied up, and moved with a tractor toward a carport. It was the first description that gave police a place to look. Deputies at the property were told to focus on a detached metal carport west of the house. Near the tractor, they found a pile of cardboard boxes, rugs, soil bags, and other materials stacked in a way that looked deliberate. Underneath was black plastic, and beneath that, investigators found the body of Craig Thetford. The autopsy later estimated he had been dead for weeks to months, a timeline consistent with a January killing. Doctors found 3 or 4 gunshot wounds on the left side of his body, including one through the heart. Fingerprints confirmed the remains were Craig. The missing person case was over. The homicide case had just begun. With Craig identified, an arrest warrant was issued for Dena. Authorities in New Mexico and Texas were notified, and a few hours later, officers learned she was at Red River Hospital. They found her alive, unharmed, and took her into custody without incident. Detective Curtis finally had the body, the search evidence, the witness accounts, and the financial questions. But one question remained. Why? When Dena was brought in for questioning, Curtis did not get the explanation she was hoping for. Dena quickly asked for a lawyer, ending the interview before investigators could press her on motive, money, or the details Leslie had described. Dena Thetford was booked without bond on charges including first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Prosecutors would later frame the case as a circumstantial homicide. They alleged Dena shot Craig inside the house, moved and hid his body, lied repeatedly about where he was, and spent or removed shared assets while friends and family searched for him.
But as of the source's March 2026 status, Dena's case was still in the pretrial phase. She remained legally presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in court. What makes the case so chilling is not just that Craig was missing for months. It is that the truth may have been sitting on the property the whole time, under layers of ordinary things: boxes, bags, rugs, plastic, and a story that almost worked. Officers smelled something was wrong before they knew what it was. They walked past clues before those clues had meaning. And in the end, the case did not break open because the suspect explained everything. It broke open because too many stories failed at once. The Mexico story, the money story, the safe story, the missing person story, and finally, the story hidden in plain sight.